Part 109. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1081. Chapter 1081. Reputation is the last word. Oh, my sister-in-law didn't tell me, I would have forgotten about it. Then let's go to the jewelry store and take a walk to see if there are any good designs. If you don't find anything you like, don't be afraid. You can wait for me to draw the pattern and ask the master to make it. He also responded to the good news with great interest, and called Shui Ling to go to the outer courtyard to arrange carriages and horses. The aunt and sister-in-law went back and changed their clothes for going out. The weather was too hot, so Jiyan didn't wear a curtain or hat. Grandma he wanted to stay and look after the house, but was pulled into the car by Jiyan. Mommy has been looking after the house for so long she must be bored in the village all the time, just come with us for a walk this time. Grandma he still wanted to refuse. After all, she had left with her, and there were only a few little girls left in the old house. If anything happened, no one would come forward to deal with it. But Warner also invited her, Mommy, don't worry about the family. It's just a free morning, the sky won't fall. Besides, the village chief and others are here. I'll give you a few words. If anything happens, they will naturally send someone to the city to look for us. He Yajing responded, and laughed, that's good, the old slave gives Mrs. Xiao and the county owner. That's right, Jiyan sat next to Aunt He and said with a smile, Mom, I'll choose a pair of bracelets for myself later. I'll thank you. My sister-in-law and I are not at home on weekdays, either in the old house or the princess's mansion. I'm counting on you to take care of me. This is what the old slave should do, but I can't afford the princess to say thank you, and he was a little scared, but she was happy in her heart. She does have to worry a lot when her masters are not at home, but this is not the duty of a slave. Every day I have no worries about food and clothing, no one beats or scolds me, and my master is kind. Who wouldn't envy me if I tell you that? Jiyan did not let her refuse, and turned to Shuiling Shuiyun and sister-in-law's maid Chengxiu, you too, if you like something later, just pick it out. Today I will pay the bill and reward you. The water was lively and he immediately cheered. Princess, I want a silver bracelet. I can give it to my mother when I get home. Shui Yun also smiled and saluted and thanked him without refusing. With a generous master, she is used to getting good things from time to time. Only Chengxiu looked at his master with some hesitation. Warner patted her hand and said with a smile, you can accept the reward given by the princess. The princess has the most money in the family, so just pick the one you like, don't be polite to her. Everyone laughed when they heard this, and they were discussing which jewelry store in the street was the best. In this way, the carriage entered the city and turned to the shopping street. I originally thought that in such a hot weather, there wouldn't be too many people shopping. Unexpectedly, the whole street was full of people coming and going, and it was difficult for a horse-drawn carriage to move along. Everyone could only get off the carriage early and walk in. What kind of a good day is this? So many people are going out. Warner stepped on the bluestone floor and felt that her thin-soled embroidered shoes were about to be burned through. Jiyan suddenly thought of the reason and responded, in a few days, the prince will choose a concubine. It is estimated that many people will come to buy clothes and jewelry for the girls at home. Yes, I really forgot about this. I'm afraid there are more people in the jewelry store and embroidery shop. Warner frowned, wanting to back off. Jiyan said with a smile, don't worry, sister-in-law, we can get a private room and chew slowly. Besides, the soles of the feet are almost cooked. If you don't spend some money, you will suffer in vain. Warner also smiled, let's go quickly. Don't talk about the soles of your feet for a while. Everyone is familiar. The aunt and sister-in-law were laughing and joking, and soon they entered the jewelry building. Sure enough, the jewelry building was indeed overcrowded. We usually have 3 or 4 boys, but today we have 7 or 8 boys, and some of them cannot be entertained. The old shopkeeper was a sharp-eyed person. He saw the 2 sisters and sisters standing at the door from a distance, so he struggled to squeeze through the crowd. "Princess, madam, you are really negligent, very negligent," the old shopkeeper saluted and said hello very politely. "There are too many customers in the shop today, and I didn't see you two arriving for a while. I hope you can forgive me." Jiyan waved her hand and said, "Shopkeeper, we want to see the children's longevity locks and collars, as well as men's hairpins and jade pendants. Help us find a clean place." The shopkeeper was happy and relieved. Nearly all the people in this shop are buying women's hairpins. It would be really difficult for Princess Kangal to get involved. Unexpectedly, Princess Kangal wanted to buy things for her children and men. This was not popular in the store and there was no conflict at all. He immediately led the way and sent Jiyan and others to the backyard. The layout of this jewelry building is a typical one with a front shop and a backyard. The shop has 2 floors and is spacious and elegant. The yard at the back is much smaller. But if your boss or friends come to visit on weekdays, if you don't want to be in front, you have to lead them to the back. So, the 2 rooms in the east wing were cleared out, decorated elegantly and cleanly, and became tea rooms for entertaining guests. At this moment, Jiyan and others were let in from the north room. The shopkeeper ordered the rough lady to serve tea and snacks, and even brought 2 basins of ice cubes. The room quickly cooled down, making everyone breathe a sigh of relief. Jiyan saw the shopkeeper looking outside and guessed that he was thinking about the business ahead, so he smiled and said, "Shopkeeper, prepare more of the things we need and bring them over for us to pick. Then you go and work on the front. No need to say hello." Warner also said, "Yes, shopkeeper, don't neglect the guests in front of you. Let's choose something and use your precious place to rest." "Hey, I don't dare to accept it, I don't dare to accept it." The shopkeeper smiled broadly and bent down to express his thanks. "Thank you to the princess and the young lady for your understanding, I am really too busy today. In this case, Lao Chan will ask someone to send something over. If you two have any orders, just go and find Lao Chan. Lao Chan will definitely be there at your call." After saying a few polite words, the old shopkeeper went to the front. Shui Ling looked at the snacks on the table and there were no fruits at all, so she walked up to her master and said with a smile, "Princess, this is very close to our shop. I'll go get some juice to quench the thirst of you and the young lady, okay?" Shui Yun glared at her and said angrily, "If you want to drink juice, just tell me why you are pretending to be the master." Everyone laughed, Shui Ling blushed, and pulled the master's sleeve to act coquettishly. Jiyan said, "Go ahead and bring some ice cream if you want. The weather is too hot, so it's a good time to have cold drinks." "Okay. I'll be back soon." Shui Ling jumped up and ran happily, not forgetting to wink at Shui Yun when she went out. Everyone was amused by her and laughed again. At this time, a boy came in carrying several layers of trays, half of which contained longevity locks and necklaces, and the other half contained various jade pendants, hairpins, and even small items such as fan pendants. I have to say that word of mouth is the last word. This jewelry shop's business is good because of its ability. All the items are exquisitely made and of good quality. Jiyan remembered the jewelry promised to Grandma He and Shui Yun, so she asked the boy to bring over some ordinary hairpin rings. Everyone gathered around the tray, picking up this one and saying yes, that would be good too. During the excitement of picking, another group of guests came outside, and they were led to sit in the next room. 2 updates today. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1082. Chapter 1082. Enemies meet on a narrow road. "Oh, it's so hot." "That's right, the shopkeeper will give us fruit drinks quickly, there are also ice basins, Why are there only two? This is too little, please add two more. This tea tastes really bad, isn't there a dragon well tea before the rain? And this snack, how come it's jinbei cake instead of butterfly cake? The guests seemed to be all young women. They started to be picky as soon as they entered the door, and the shopkeepers and waiters were buzzing around. From snacks and tea to ice basins and decorations, there is simply nothing that satisfies them. Those who don't know, may think that they have returned home, so particular. And he was afraid that the masters would find it noisy, so she stepped forward and closed half of the door. Just as the boy came over with 2 plates of silver jewelry, Grandma he was about to let him in. As a result, the maid standing in front of the next door scolded the young man, "Are you blind? Our lady is over here." The young man was embarrassed and quickly responded, "Girl, please calm down, this jewelry was arranged by a customer from the north. The nobleman you are serving hasn't spoken yet, so we don't dare to deliver it at will." The maid wanted to say something else, but Nanny he had already leaned out and glanced at her coldly. "Mammy he is definitely under the master and above all the slaves in the Li family." She taught Shui Ling and Shui Yun the rules step by step, and all the other maids and servants respected her. If she had a straight face, all the servants of the Li family would have a chill running down their backs. It can be said that they made a mistake, and the master may not care about it, but Nanny he will definitely let them remember this lesson. The arrogant maid opened her mouth, but was forced to hold back her words after being glared at by Aunt He. The boy took advantage of this opportunity and stepped into the north room. Grandma he glanced at the maid again, turned around and followed her in. Such a stupid maid, if she were placed in the Li family, she would know in a minute that trouble comes from her mouth. Warner and Jiyan were playing with a mutton fat jade pendant, and they both took a fancy to it. This jade pendant is made of warm jade and is about the size of a child's palm. One side is carved with bamboo and stone pictures, and there is a poem on the other side. The overall look is refreshing and elegant. If worn on a belt, it will definitely add luster to the owner. "Sister-in-law, don't rob me, I bought this jade pendant and gave it to my eldest brother, he will definitely be happy." Jiyan directly grabbed the jade pendant in her hand and smiled coquettishly with her sister-in-law. Warner naturally wouldn't fight with her sister-in-law and said with a smile, okay, I'll give this to you. I'll buy a hosta for your eldest brother. I also sewed a set of azure-colored brocade robes with dark patterns embroidered for your elder brother, and he also made 2 pairs of black satin soft-soled boots, which are perfect for a set. As she spoke, she picked up the hairpin again. Jiyan wanted to see something else, but the voices next door became louder and louder, and they came through clearly. Cousin, look at this red treasure, it's so noble, just wear this and choose, and be sure to choose the princess," a little girl with a sharp voice shouted excitedly. "That's good, put it aside and take it away later," another girl with a somewhat familiar voice responded, "help me pick out earrings again. Last time, that girl brought a pair of gourd pendants with pink pearls. I want to buy them. One that's bigger and better than hers." "Cousin, are you talking about Princess Kangal?" the little girl with a sharp voice said in a very disdainful tone. "How can she compare with cousin? She is just a country girl raised with mud legs. If she didn't have some ability to flatter, the third princess is so confused, who wants to pay attention to her?" "Humph," the girl with a familiar voice seemed unwilling to say more, and simply responded, "She just pretends to be well behaved and deceives others into thinking she is good, but she is really dark." But the girl with the sharp voice, obviously he was not a smart person, and immediately said, "That is, many people say that Princess Kangal is kind-hearted, thoughtful, and good-looking, but let me tell you, those people are blind. If she is so good, why did she let the maid slap my cousin's face at the last summer party? She." "Okay," the girl with a familiar voice cut off her cousin's words and shouted irritably, "It's all happened in the past, what can you say if you retell it? When I become the crown princess, I will let Princess Kangal enter the palace every day to I kowtow, I must avenge that slap in the face. Beijian was quiet for a long time because of the words of the two cousins. Jiyan also guessed that the person who aspired to be the crown prince was none other than the Miss Chen family who had failed in the poetry competition. She and her sister-in-law raised their eyebrows and shrugged. Her physique should be the type to attract trouble. She can meet enemies wherever she goes. Wanner frowned, not liking that the girl next door arranged for her sister like this. She stood up and was about to go to the next door, but unexpectedly someone rushed into the battlefield faster than her. Shui Ling Dion ran back with the food box, not even noticing the beads of sweat on her forehead. The food box contains ice cream and various snacks, all taken from Bianjian. As long as she thought about the silky, sweet, and cold taste in her mouth, she no longer felt hot at all. As a result, as soon as I entered the backyard of the jewelry shop, I heard someone talking nonsense. What does it mean to be a princess and punish her to kneel down every day? She rushed over in a few steps, and when she saw that there was an acquaintance in the room, she became even more furious. Chen, I didn't knock out your back molars last time, but you still can't change your bad mouth. If I had known you dared to scold our princess, I should have slapped your head off. Miss Chen turned her head and saw Shui Ling at the door. She jumped up in shock. Her face turned red. She wanted to scold him but was a little scared. It was her cousin who thought it was time to show off. After all, her family background is low and she is not qualified to choose a concubine, so she expects her cousin to enter the palace and win her over. She rushed to the door and cursed at Shui Ling. Who are you? Whose slave are you? Who gave you the courage to talk to my cousin like that? Of course it's me. Jiyan held up her skirt and walked behind Shui Ling. Shui Ling quickly moved out of the way, and everyone in the room saw clearly the master behind her. It's rare to go out shopping, so it's rare for Jiyan to dress up. Today she changed into a red long-sleeved outer dress, paired with a golden skirt, lined with jade-colored gauze, which made her face look white, her face slightly flushed, and her complexion was very good. Hair of long black hair, the upper part was simply tied up, with a big red jewel with gold flowers and leaves embedded in it. The lower part was braided, dotted with pink and white pearls in the middle, hanging down on the shoulders. The young girl, who was young and beautiful. Zhongling was beautiful, and her dress was slightly mature. But at this time, coupled with this sudden appearance, it added a third of majesty and nobility. Ms. Chen was completely pale. She was caught saying bad things by the real owner. She subconsciously covered the right side of her face, which was the place where she was swollen last time. Ms. Chen, people say you get up wherever you fall. Obviously, you are not the kind of person who learns lessons. Even if you hate me, you should still curse a few words secretly at home. If you say such nonsense in public, aren't you afraid that others will hear it and find out that it's your good looks that are ruined? Jiyan turned his head and motioned for everyone to look forward. The backyard of this jewelry store is originally small, very close to the front hall, and there are really too many guests today. Just now, Shui Ling made such a noise that many guests were sneaking around to look over. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1083. Chapter 1083. My sister-in-law's fighting power is off the charts. Ms. Chen's face was green and white, and she wished she could go back in time and sew her cousin's mouth shut. But now things have happened, and she has no regrets. Last time she went home, her father scolded her severely and grounded her for a long time. If it weren't for choosing a concubine, she wouldn't have had the chance to step out of the house. Princess Kangal, it is indeed our fault for us to talk about right and wrong behind our backs. But you, a slave, are too unruly. You scold others when you come up. Is this the upbringing of your Li family? Or the Li family has become so arrogant that even a servant is more noble than me, a daughter of an official? I have to say that Miss Chen has indeed made progress, and she has really made some sense for herself as soon as she opens her mouth. Just as Ji Yin was about to refute, Wanner had already stood beside her. Miss Chen, since we are comparing status, my sister is a princess with a title and a fief, so isn't she much more noble than you? Aren't you still insulting me at will? Speaking of lack of education, the Chen family probably doesn't have much education. After all, it is understandable that our servants are uneducated, but it would be ridiculous for a servant's daughter to be uneducated. The Chen family has money to buy jewelry for their daughter, doesn't it mean they don't have money to ask a nun to teach her? And just now, Miss Chen kept saying that you were going to be the crown princess. If I remember correctly, the selection of the concubine hasn't started yet, right? Could it be that your Chen family manipulated the emperor and the crown prince and made the decision in advance? Control the royal family? No, I didn't say it. Miss Chen was so frightened that her lips trembled. No matter how stupid she was, she knew that she couldn't bear this crime, otherwise the Chen family's future would be ruined, let alone her. Wanner didn't care what she did, her smile became more and more mocking. Ms. Chen should go to the medical clinic to have a look. She is so old and can't remember what she said. I'm afraid her illness is serious. You must know that the basic condition for choosing a concubine is good health. If Miss Chen is like this, even if she enters the palace, she will have to bear the crime of deceiving the emperor. Ms. Chen stamped her feet angrily. The daughter-in-law of the Li family was actually more ruthless than the princess. In the blink of an eye, she had already been charged with 2 crimes. She didn't know what to do if she went on. So, holding back her anger and fear, she called out to her cousin and maids. Let's go and don't care about these barbarians. After saying that, she was the first to run away. Her cousin glared at Ji Yin and others unwillingly, and hurried away with the maids. Ji Yin hugged her sister-in-law's arm, her eyes filled with admiration. Sister-in-law, you are so awesome, your fighting power is off the charts. Silly sister, what are you talking about again? Wanner didn't understand what explosion meant, but she was coaxed into laughing by her sister-in-law. When you were outside, it was just that I couldn't reach you. Now that you are with me and in front of me, if you are bullied again, how can I have the face to see my grandma and aunt in the future? Wanner patted her sister's hand, turned back to look at the embarrassed shopkeeper and waiter, and said with a smile, Shopkeeper, I'm really sorry for causing you trouble. In this way, we have finished the selection. You can calculate the account. We will not counter-offer. This is an apology for disrupting your business today. Oh, I don't dare, the old shopkeeper quickly saluted. Young lady, you are so polite, but I didn't treat you well, so you and the princess were frightened. In this way, I will give you a 10% discount as a token of my sincerity. Please ask the young lady and the princess to take care of Lao Chen's business in the future. In this way, both the buyer and the seller valued peace, and the matter was settled smoothly. Soon, Ji Yin and her sister-in-law paid the bill, and Grandma He and others took their things and left the shop. The spectators originally expected things to become big, but they were disappointed. Shuiling was worried that the ice cream in the box would melt, so she rushed to buy Jian in advance. Jian, Wanner, and others were not slow on their feet. For no other reason than the midday sun was too hot. Shui Yun glanced at Grandma He's cold face and wiped her sister's sweat. The greedy silly girl could only hope for her own good. Although she was standing up for her master just now, she also made her own decisions. I can't say that she will be scolded by Grandma He after she returns home. Shui Ling didn't realize that she had made a mistake at all. She rushed into Bianjian's backyard and shouted, "It's so hot, it's so hot. The young lady and the eldest young lady are here, shopkeeper Peng, hurry up and prepare the room." Shopkeeper Peng was already fat, and the summer was difficult, but the business in the shop was very good. At this moment, he was literally covered in sweat. When he heard his master coming, he quickly called the boy to clean up the guest room in the backyard, put in a lot of ice basins, and prepare ice cream and snacks again. Jian, Wan'er, and others just entered the house and were greeted by a blast of air conditioning. They all let out a long sigh of relief. Wan'er pulled off her handkerchief and wiped her forehead, frowned and sighed, "Sister, I'm afraid it won't rain today. Will we have to have a complete abortion this year?" Jian was also worried and panicked, and responded, "I don't know. If the drought continues, it will be okay. I'm afraid it will start raining again in the summer and cause floods. Then it will really be a disaster." Shopkeeper Peng stepped forward with a smile, held a teapot filled with sour plum soup, poured 2 cups of it himself, and advised, "Madam, Princess, we mortals have nothing to do with God's affairs. We can only look at his mood. Try the newly launched iced sour plum soup in our shop. It's very popular and the supply exceeds the demand." Jian and Wan'er picked it up, took a sip, and couldn't help but praise it. Wan'er responded, "It's really good. It's sour, sweet and cool. The most important thing is that it can dispel the heat." Jian asked about the price and nodded, "High quality and low price." After saying that, she remembered something and asked again, "The popsicles that are sold out wholesale every day cannot be stopped no matter how busy we are. Firstly, the people of the relief department have a living, and secondly, it allows the people in the city to relieve themselves from the heat. Don't worry, Princess, everyone is working overtime at night just to make more popsicles. In fact, popsicles don't make any money, but we just hope that the poor folks can cool off. After all, not everyone has the money to come to our store buying ice cream and fruit drinks." Shopkeeper Peng is a conscientious and generous master, so he is naturally willing to put in more effort. Jian laughed when he heard it and said, "That's good. If we don't have enough manpower, we can recruit a few more so that everyone can have a rest. However, the newly recruited manpower must be carefully investigated and added carefully. We are in the food business. If someone has malicious intentions and makes some moves, our sign will be destroyed." "Yes, Princess, don't worry, I am also thinking about this matter, and I am extra careful." Shopkeeper Peng looked a little proud and replied, "Originally, Princess is not coming, so I have to go see Princess. Please give me some instructions. If there are suitable boys or girls in Broken Gold Beach, it would be best to send 5 of them to learn the craft. If not, I plan to ask the store clerk to go home and call his younger brother, sister, nephew, etc. This way he knows everything and is more at ease than outsiders." "What a good idea," Jian praised and replied, "then I will go back and ask the village chief today, and someone will come and reply to you tomorrow." "Yes, Princess." After saying a few more words, Shopkeeper Peng withdrew. Jian, Wan'er, and others were left eating and drinking to relieve the heat. After resting, they continued to walk around various shops. In the palace, at the moment, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince was admiring flowers and enjoying the cool air in the imperial garden. Eunuch Feng was waiting at the gate of the garden with his feet raised. He was finally looking forward to the return of the little who had left the palace to buy things, so he cursed in a low voice, "You bastard, what's wrong? We just came back, are you thirsty?" 2 updates today. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1084. Chapter 1084, Like the Prince 10,000 times. The little was not afraid. Instead, he smiled and said a few words in Eunuch Feng's ear. Eunuch Feng frowned when he heard this and couldn't help but ask, "Do you really mean what you said? Did you add fuel to the fire?" "Oh, steward, how dare you, this servant? This is a matter of concern to our highness, and I can't lie no matter what." The little felt aggrieved, causing Eunuch Feng to glare at him, and then walked inside with the food box. There was a layer of ice cubes under the food box, and water was dripping as we walked. But when we got to the pavilion and opened the lid, the air conditioning came in front of us, which made everyone couldn't help but take a second look. The prince was drinking tea. When he saw this, he put down his teacup and asked, "You have been here for so long, but something happened." Eunuch Feng quickly took out the snacks from the food box, and finally there was a pot of jade melon juice with ice. He laughed along and said, "Your Highness the Crown Prince is wise, and the little who left the palace did encounter something. This guy took advantage of a little palace maid and went to the jewelry store to help carry some things back. He happened to watch the excitement. It was said that Princess Kangal and her sister-in-law were also shopping for jewelry in the jewelry store, and they ended up sitting in the private room next door with the lady from the residence of Chen Chilang, the Ministry of Civil Affairs. For some reason, Miss Chen started to quarrel with the princess. Miss Chen made rude remarks and said that when she takes the position of crown princess, she will ask the princess to come into the palace and kowtow to her every day. The prince held up the sour plum soup and paused, then sneered, "Did she really say that? It shouldn't be wrong." The young didn't dare to deceive the old slave. Besides, there were many guests present at the time, so he couldn't do anything false. Eunuch Feng's favorite was Princess Kangal, and he couldn't help but poke fun at her secretly. I complained for the princess. Miss Chen is really, oh, the princess is such a good person. Even the princess says she is smart and kind, and wishes she could stay with her every day. But this Miss Chen is targeting the princess everywhere. No wonder the princess wants to leave the palace, otherwise I don't know how she would be arranged by someone like Miss Chen. The old slave felt pity when he thought of the princess. You know, when the princess was in the palace, she made ice cream and cold drinks every day, so there was no need to send someone out to buy them. The prince lowered his eyes and slowly drank the jade melon juice without responding. At this time, the emperor finished approving the memorial and came over to enjoy the cool air. The prince poured jade melon juice for him with his own hands, and picked up a piece of cold cake with bean paste filling. The emperor enjoyed his son's filial piety very much. He sat him down, took a sip of jade melon juice, and praised, "This jade melon juice doesn't taste like the imperial kitchen, but is it bought from outside?" The prince smiled and said, "Yes, father." The little ran to Bianjian to bring back 2 pots in total. 1 pot was sent to Highland Palace for the third sister. "My son and I have no regard for my father. The stuff is too cold and hurts my spleen and stomach. I don't want to think that my father has a good taste, but he drank it after all." The emperor laughed heartily, with a bit of pride in his expression. "Okay, you brother and sister get along well. It doesn't matter if I, the father, don't drink this jade melon juice." The prince accompanied the emperor and said a few words, then he got straight to the point and said, "Father, one of the candidates on the list wants to withdraw." The emperor was stunned for a moment before he figured out which list it was. "So," he asked, "which one do you want to remove? Is it particularly displeasing to you?" The prince nodded and responded, "The legitimate daughter of the Minister of Civil Affairs, Chen Chilang, is the one who failed to make a splash at the imperial concubine's summer banquet and was slapped in the face by the third princess and the princess. I heard that she threatened outside today that when she enters the palace and becomes the crown princess, she will ask the third princess and the princess to kowtow to her every day to apologize." Presumptuous, the emperor glared at that time and scolded, "A mere servant's daughter, who gave her the courage to speak such lies, not to mention the crown princess, even if she passed the selection, she would be nothing more than a concubine. Even the concubines can't take their turn." The prince nodded, his face also full of displeasure. "With such a character, even if Urchin can tolerate it. But the princess is very straight-tempered. When she really bullies her in front of the princess will think that it is Urchin, the elder brother, who is behind the instructions. That will ruin the relationship between our brother and sister." The prince's words stung the emperor's lungs. He and his brothers had been fighting to the death for the throne since childhood, and there was no sense of brotherhood at all. Now that he is a father, he does not have many children, and the throne has not become a source of hatred between his children. Especially these days, he was particularly happy to see that the prince was willing to send a copy to his Highland palace if he had any good food or toys. You can always rest assured that one day he will be gone. I didn't expect that a dead girl would show up and talk so shamelessly without anyone paying attention. Call the Minister of Civil Affairs, Chen Chilang, to ask him to change his daughter to run for election. If he dares to let his uneducated daughter talk nonsense outside, he doesn't need to be a minister anymore. He can just stay at home and teach his daughter all day long. Manager Yi hurriedly stepped forward. He responded, and then personally took people to the yamen to look for Chen Chilang. The prince lowered his head, took a sip of jade melon juice, and hid the sarcasm in his eyes. In my father's heart, power is always the most important. What we are doing today is just to let the Chen family get a daughter, rather than exclude the Chen family. It's just because I can't bear to let go of the Chen family's power. Eunuch Feng stood outside the pavilion, his head bowed humbly, and he had already given the prince 10,000 likes in his heart. As expected of a prince, he brought the third princess in with just a few words. Not only did he avenge the princess, but he also eliminated a troublemaker from entering the palace. Let's not talk about what's going on in the palace, but at Chilang Chen's house, Miss Chen is hugging her mother, wiping her tears, and stamping her feet coquettishly. Oh, mother, you must make the decision for your daughter, that Princess Kangol is too much. Last time at the summer party, she slapped her daughter. Her daughter was laughed at by others for days, and she really didn't want to live. Now that she finally has to enter the palace to choose a concubine, she bullied me again. What kind of noble girl am I? A man with a mud leg can beat me and bully me at will. Oh, I might as well die. Ms. Chen gave birth to a son and a daughter. When her son was 6 years old, he moved to the front yard and was taught by her husband. She could no longer intervene and could only see him once a day. Occasionally, I am busy with studies and it is normal not to see each other for a few days. Only this little daughter has been with her since she was born. Although she was raised more arrogant and stupider, after all, she came out of her belly, so she should love her more. At this moment, her daughter was crying so pitifully. Of course she couldn't bear to let her go, so she hugged her and coaxed her. Okay, don't cry yet. Tell me what happened. Ms. Chen winked at her cousin, who quickly took over the conversation. On the way, the two of them had already discussed everything in the carriage. The fault is of course the fault of King Kangol, they are the ones who were innocently bullied. So, the little cousin added some fuel and jealousy to the situation, and the matter came to pass. Princess Kangol deliberately provoked her, failed to the jewelry they were interested in, and deliberately humiliated them in public. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1085. Chapter 1085, The Consequences of Seeking Death. Ms. Chen's face turned dark with anger, and she couldn't help but curse, this Li family is really bullying people. It's just Princess Kangol who is so unruly and vicious. Why is her sister-in-law so ignorant of right and wrong? No, we can't let this matter go. I'll talk to your father tonight and ask him to ask the Li family if he wants to enmity with our Chen family. Last time at the summer banquet, I thought you were not good at studying, so I was willing to admit defeat. But this time, we just met in a shop, why would I still bully you? Does she think that our Chen family are ordinary people? Let her make a fool of herself. Flatten it. Miss Chen pulled her handkerchief to wipe her tears and continued to add fuel to the fire. Mom, you don't know that this girl from the Li family is very good at flattering me. What if she speaks ill of me in front of the third princess or His Royal Highness? Huh. Will I be kicked off? Humph. Mrs. Chen's eyes became even more stern and she scolded, there is no one with the surname Li in this world. How can she just say what she says? You go to choose a concubine, it is related to the future of the family. When your father comes back, he will definitely think method. Your father is a minister. He has not been bullied by a mud-legged person. Ms. Chen and her little cousin looked at each other with excited expressions. As long as the family is willing to take action, not to mention the little Princess Kangol, even the Li family will be destroyed. At this moment, the entrance to the courtyard suddenly became lively. When everyone looked outside, they saw Shilang Chen, dressed in official uniform, striding in with his brows furrowed and beads of sweat on his forehead. "Oh, sir, why are you back so early today?" Mrs. Chen hurriedly stepped forward to greet her. Ms. Chen also shouted coquettishly, "Dad, you are back. I was bullied today." Unfortunately, before she could finish speaking, Chen Shilang's slap had already been thrown down. Crack, pa. Ms. Chen Shilang fired his bow from left to right and slapped Ms. Chen back and forth twice. She fell to the ground and was so confused that she didn't know what night it was. Ms. Chen was startled and screamed, "Master, why are you beating your daughter? We are about to choose a concubine. How can my daughter see anyone if her face is hurt?" As she spoke, she rushed forward and helped her daughter up with great effort. As a result, Chen Shilang went crazy. Seeing his wife protecting his daughter so much, he actually raised his foot and hit his wife on the back hard. Mrs. Chen was in pain and fell together with her daughter. She was so frightened and angry that she almost forgot to speak. After more than 20 years of marriage, this was the first time she was beaten. "Chen's Hyman, you are crazy, are you going to kill your wife and daughter and marry someone else? Don't forget, my natal family is not a small family." Mrs. Chen struggled and was about to pounce on Mr. Chen. A woman's natural skill, the Nine-yin white bone claw, must be used on Chen Shilang's hands and face. Shilang Chen slightly regretted that he should not have beaten his wife as well. But he was really angry. "Okay, stop making trouble. Don't even look at what trouble your good daughter got into." He pulled away the mad Mrs. Chen, then lifted up her official uniform and sat down, breathing hot air from her nose. Ms. Chen had already gotten up. Seeing her father like this again made her legs weak from fear. She hid behind Mrs. Chen, feeling guilty and not daring to say a word. Mrs. Chen looked up and saw that all the maids and women in the room were gone. No one saw her being beaten, so she straightened her hair and sat down while holding back her anger. "Today I want to hear, why did you go crazy when you came in? If you don't tell me, I will never give up." Chen Shilang snorted, "I was busy at the yamen just now, and Manager Yi suddenly came to deliver a message. The emperor personally ordered that your good daughter be removed from the list of concubines." Mrs. Chen was shocked and anxious, and Miss Chen even started to cry. "What's going on? You are the minister of the Ministry of Civil Affairs. Are your legitimate daughters not eligible to participate in the selection of the concubine?" Mrs. Chen gritted her teeth with hatred. "Is the crown princess predetermined?" Mr. Chen glanced at the culprit's daughter and said angrily, "I begged Mr. Yi for a long time, and he just said a few words. She was a good daughter raised by you, and she made such nonsense in the jewelry store, saying that she would become a crown princess in the palace, and that she wanted the third princess and the princess to kowtow to her all day long, in order to avenge the slap she received for her poem. As a result, not only was Princess Kangol exposed on the spot, but it even reached the ears of the emperor and the prince. The emperor Longyan was furious and directly erased her qualifications to participate in the election." "Ugh, I didn't say it, I didn't say it." Miss Chen stamped her feet and cried, feeling extremely aggrieved, "I just scolded Princess Kangol, I didn't scold the third princess, I just said it casually to vent my anger." Shilang Chen really wanted to slap her twice more, but things were already like this and he was too lazy to get angry again. In this situation, it doesn't matter whether you scold the third princess or not, what matters is that you can't enter the palace to stand for election. Master, master, my daughter is your only legitimate daughter, you can't ignore it. Do you want to go to the palace and beg the emperor, or let's ask the Li family to apologize? Mrs. Chen didn't care that she had been beaten just now and quickly begged her husband to find a way. Shilang Chen sighed inwardly and said coldly, no need, the emperor didn't blame our family too much. In addition to disqualifying his daughter from participating in the election, he also asked our family to send another girl to participate in the election. I decided to let the legitimate daughter of my second brother's family enter the palace. The child has good looks. She has been proficient in playing chess, calligraphy, and painting since she was a child. The most important thing is that she is stable and generous. After entering the palace, even if she does not add luster to the family, at least she will not bring any brilliance to the family. Trouble at home. What? Mrs. Chen and her daughter almost shouted in unison, both shaking their heads wildly. No, no. Daddy, Miss Chen ran over and hugged her father's thigh. I am your biological daughter, and I want to enter the palace. Oh, I can't send my cousin away. Mr. Chen was impatient to see them continue to make trouble, so he threw his daughter away and stood up, scolding, if you hadn't been shameless in your words and deeds outside and brought shame to the family time and time again, you wouldn't have ended up like this. From now on, follow your mama and learn the rules, and I will give you a good husband-in-law. After saying that, he raised his legs and walked out. Occasionally he saw a timid little girl hiding in the corner from the corner of his eye, so he shouted to a nun, send my cousin back, and she will not be allowed to come to the door again. Mammy quickly knelt down and kowtowed, and did not dare to get up until Chen Shilang left the yard. Mrs. Chen and her daughter held their heads and cried together, their intestines turning green with regret. On the contrary, my cousin's eyes rolled for a long time, and when they were not paying attention, she took off a pair of gold bracelets from her wrists and stuffed them into her arms. This is what her cousin lent her to wear when she was about to go out in the morning, fearing that she would be embarrassed. She must stay and sell it when she returns home. It will be enough for her, at least half a dowry. She is not a legitimate daughter. She has never been cared for or loved by anyone. She can only make plans for herself. After finally going out on the street, Ji Yin accompanied her sister-in-law out of the white clouds, and went to Begu Yuan and the hot pot restaurant. The hot pot restaurant changed to barbecue early, but the weather was hot and business was a bit bleak. Fortunately, Pagoda Garden has continued as usual, and its business has even improved to a higher level. After all, putting all kinds of fruits in cold water is a magical tool to relieve the heat. Finally, Wana returned to the Earl's mansion to deal with trivial matters, and Ji Yin abducted her to Cyclamen. 2 updates today. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1086. Chapter 1086, Aunt is closer than mother. In the past 2 years, Cyclamen has trained more and more good cooks. Even cold dishes and hot dishes, red dishes and white dishes, etc. are separated. Although the kitchen is very busy, it is busy but not chaotic, and each performs its duties. Therefore, family members rarely go to the stove during the day, as long as they control the overall situation. When Ji Yin entered the yard through the back door, she was even more happy when she saw her brother wearing a set of blue clothes and pants, looking clean and refreshing. Jia Huan pulled her sister into the house. She was also happy, and shouted to the boy to bring tea and snacks. The brother and sister exchanged a few words of personal acknowledgement, and Ji Yin helped solve some minor problems. Then they went to the earl's mansion to meet up with their sister-in-law, and they returned to Sujintan together. Mother Lin hugged Yuan Yuan, talked to the villagers at the entrance of the village, blew in the wind, and waited for her masters to come back. Yuan Yuan really lives up to his name, he has always been round since birth. When it's so hot, I will inevitably suffer more than other children. Fortunately, there aren't that many rules at home, so I changed him into a sleeveless jacket and half-length shorts early, so he can wear them as he likes to keep cool. But in this way, his lotus-jointed arms and legs were exposed. They were white and tender, and even more cute. Everyone who saw them wanted to pinch them. Especially the elderly, their favorite thing is children. Such a white and fat baby is like a little fairy boy from heaven. The old lady came over to make some predictions. She wanted to sew a small coat for Yuan Yuan. She also measured her little feet and wanted to make a pair of shoes for Yuan Yuan. It was so lively under the big tree, with laughter and laughter everywhere. As soon as Wanner and Jiyan got out of the car, they both smiled and quickly nodded and said hello to the villagers and chatted a few words. Wanner wanted to take over her son, but unfortunately her son reached out and ran towards her aunt. "Auntie, hug me, hug me. Who can bear the weight of a baby that makes a milky sound?" Jiyan quickly hugged her nephew and gave him a big kiss. "Auntie is back with snacks that we Yuan Yuan like to eat. How are you, Auntie?" "Okay." Yuan Yuan hugged her aunt's neck and kissed her several times. Jiyan's heart instantly melted with honey. Dion hugged her little nephew and walked into the yard. Wanner, the abandoned mother, couldn't help laughing and scolding, "This brat is closer to my aunt than to my mother." Everyone laughed when they heard this. Mama Lin had always been in charge of the trivial affairs of the old house, but she fell ill at the beginning of the spring. Even with the help of Dr. Zhang, she still lay in bed for a month, and she has only recovered now. Mammy He, an old sister, felt sorry for her, so she guarded the old house and the princess mansion alone. In the past few days, Granny Lin has really recovered. Dr. Zhang also nodded, and then slowly took over the management of the old house. At this moment, she responded with a smile, the princess was in the palace before and rarely came back. The young master must be panicking. Now that the princess is back, it is normal for the young master to hang out with his aunt. "Madam, you also want to? I'm busy, it's almost the end of the month, it's time to distribute food." This reminded Wanner. She turned around and saw everyone in the village looking at her, and said quickly, "I will sort out the account books today and open a position tomorrow." The villagers immediately responded, "Don't worry, madam, we still have food at home, we won't miss it for a few days." "That can't be done. The food should be distributed on that day. The rules must not be broken." Wanner said with a smile, "Everyone, go home and clean the rice vat. We will distribute new food tomorrow. If anyone wants to change, please report in advance. Just come up." "Okay, thank you for your hard work, madam." The villagers responded one after another, stopped chatting, and hurried home to work. There is no farming in the village, so the food is harvested from the hot spring valley. Once a month, every household goes to the granary to receive food based on head count, including coarse grains or fine grains, rice, flour, and millet. But the situation of each family is different. For example, if there is a woman in confinement, the village will give more millet. If the elderly or children are sick, they can also receive more fine food. There are rules for everything, and special circumstances can also be discussed. Over the years, hundreds of people in the village have never caused any trouble because of this matter. On the contrary, because everyone ate from a barn of food, they became more united and closer. Of course, some people are living a better life and like to eat. If they feel that the fine grain distributed in the village is not enough, they can go to the city to buy some extra. Wanner saw off the villagers, then walked into the courtyard with Nanny Lin, and said casually, "Nanny, Thank you for your hard work in taking care of the house. We were in the city just now. We were choosing jewelry. I asked Nanny he to bring you one as well. Silver hairpin, Grandma, remember to go to Grandma he to get it back. Madam, this old slave is so useless that he cannot bear your reward. Aunt Lin felt a little scared and guilty. She has been ill for so long that she would have been kicked out of other people's homes to fend for herself. As a result, at the master's house, not only did she receive treatment, but she was also given jewelry. Mom, take it, don't be polite. Warner patted the back of her hand and told her, in a few days, I will go back to the city. The princess is young, so I can't help but ask you and Aunt He to work hard. Don't worry, madam, I will take good care of the old house and serve the princess well. Mama Lin bent down and lowered her head, and solemnly responded. Getting up early the next day, right after dinner, Lao He led the caravan and hurried back to Broken Gold Beach in a dusty journey. Brother Li is also thinking about his family. Although he has never stopped writing letters to his family and is very familiar with the situation in Zindu, it is still not as good as seeing it with his own eyes. This time the convoy sent him a lot of food and drink, and there was nothing he could not have imagined, but nothing that he could not receive. He knew that it must be his sister who had organized the arrangements herself. Sure enough, reading the letter confirmed his guess. He felt relieved knowing that his sister would no longer have to enter the palace. Then he collected good things from all over the city and sent them back together with what he had saved before. So, Lao He and the others loaded several vehicles when they set out, but when they came back, the load was not reduced at all. Everyone in the family is thinking about Brother Li. When they heard that the motorcade was coming back, almost everyone came back to join in the fun at night. Not to mention Jie Huan, who is guarding business in the city. Li Lao San and Brother Mao have all rushed back from Luoan. Of course, they will have to rush back tomorrow morning. Brother Li has prepared gifts for everyone in the family, ranging from trinkets to new books, calligraphy and paintings, or ornaments. There is also a master craftsman in the county where he is located. He is very good at making tin cans, which are shiny and airtight. This time, he also sent dozens back to his family. Jiyan simply can't put it down. Such a good thing is perfect for putting medicinal powder or tea leaves. That night, the family cooked some more delicious dishes and invited Mr. Zhang and Dr. Zhang, as well as the old village chief, Lu Baiatu, Uncle Zhao and others to gather together, and it was a lively gathering. The temperament of divine Dr. Zhang was that he would never give in to himself at any time. He would directly order Jiyan and Wan'er to eat whatever they wanted, without being polite. Mr. Zhang, on the other hand, although he kept smiling and seemed to be the same as before, his dark color was somewhat embarrassing and uneasy. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1087. Chapter 1087. The importance of having a good knife. After all, he had deceived everyone about being a royal guard for more than 10 years, and he even brought the prince into Broken Gold Beach as a beggar. This was well hidden and no one discovered it, and it passed peacefully for more than 10 years. If you are unlucky and the secret is exposed, wouldn't it mean that the entire Broken Gold Beach will be a river of blood? So, when the eldest prince returned to the palace and was promised to be crowned prince by the emperor, although Mr. Zhang still stayed in Rujintan and taught the children every day, nothing changed. Actually, he still felt very sorry. Fortunately, after 2 days of curiosity, the villagers saw that Mr. Wang Zhang was still the same child, and they regained their previous closeness and respect. At this moment, everyone in the Li family ate when they needed to eat and drank when they needed to drink. No one paid any extra attention to him, let alone treated him differently. This actually made him gradually let go of his worries and feel completely relaxed. He has become accustomed to living in Broken Gold Beach, accustomed to the peace and joy here, and even the credit for raising the prince has been exchanged for his freedom to settle here for the rest of his life. If the villagers complained and rejected him, he would not be able to live here, and he would have to wander around. Fortunately, in the yard, a slight cool breeze blew by. The insects, who were supposed to be the protagonists of the night, were overshadowed by the chatter and laughter of everyone in the room, and did not say a word. The moon hangs alone in the sky, and the stars are lazy and don't know where they have gone. At the same moment, somewhere in the north of the Yangtze River, Yeshan was slowly pulling out the long knife at his waist and looking coldly at the 5 or 6 men in black opposite him. He asked coldly, "Who are you and why are you blocking my way?" The leading man in black was silent for a long time and responded, "Everyone is his own master and just obeys orders. Why ask so many questions?" Another man in black also sneered wildly, "You will be a dead person soon. It is useless to know so much. Do you still need the Lord of Hell to deliver a message for you?" Yeshan's pupils shrank slightly, and he suddenly stepped forward and swung the knife fiercely. That arrogant man in black was probably very confident in his ability, so he actually stopped him with his sword. As a result, the long knife in his hand was cut off with a click. He was so shocked that his eyes almost flew out of his head. He couldn't believe it at all. When he still wanted to escape, it was already too late. Yeshan's long sword cut off half of his body. Blood spurted out, and the 2 halves of the corpse fell to the ground so quickly that no one could react. Yeshan quickly withdrew and shook off the blood on the knife, feeling more confident in his heart. Back when the young lady suddenly took out a lot of strange things and wanted to make weapons, he was also suspicious and thought it was a child playing tricks. But unexpectedly, the weapons made by those strange things are simply unparalleled. At any time, against any sort of Tianwu, he has never lost. In a head-to-head confrontation, the opponent's sword will always be cut off. Such an artifact has allowed everyone to escape death countless times. All those who got weapons, except those who did not use them frequently like the young masters of the Li family, valued them as much as their lives and wished they could sleep with them in their arms. He also carries it with him and never lets it go. "I can't say, this time, I have to rely on this old guy to break out of the siege. Have you thought about it? If you have thought about it, answer me, who sent you here?" Yeshan tried. "Whoever explains clearly, I can spare his life." Several men in black hesitated for a moment, but still did not speak, and they all rushed forward. Hashan could only give up inquiring and go straight into the battle. I have to say that the men in black are all good players and they cooperate well. Yeshan could protect himself, but he had no chance to fight back. If this delay continued and the number of people was very different, he would surely suffer a loss, so he was cruel and scratched his back, took out a ball from his arms and threw it the ground. The moment the ball shattered, a large amount of white smoke immediately came out. Several men in black were caught off guard and quickly blocked their mouths and noses with their arms. Yeshan took the opportunity to swing out 2 swords and cut down the 2 men in black. The man in black quickly withdrew, only to find that Yeshan was not affected at all. The leading man in black cursed fiercely, "You've been fooled. White smoke is basically non-toxic and is just a camouflage." Yeshan quickly threw an antidote pill into his mouth. The injury on his back was not deep, but he had to be careful that the opponent's knife edge was smeared with poison. The 3 men in black became angry and rushed forward again. This time, neither side held back, and all their moves were directed toward death. In the end, Yeshan stood at the end due to his superior skills. But after cutting down the last man in black, he also had 4 or 5 wounds on his body. Before he could take a breath, the sound of horse hooves suddenly came from the distance. Yeshan's expression changed at that moment. He turned around, jumped on his horse and whipped up his whip. In addition to the Northern Expeditionary Army and the barbarians, there is another group of cavalry in Jiangbei, which is the mysterious group that originally wanted to rob the army. At this time, the barbarians were driven near the border, and the Northern Expeditionary Army was fully suppressed, making it impossible for them to appear nearby. Then the people surrounding us must be a hidden food-grabbing team. Boom. One horse went ahead, followed by hundreds of people. Under such moonlight, a chase started. Yashin looked back from time to time, his brows furrowing deeper and deeper. These people must be coming for him, it's not a coincidence, otherwise they wouldn't bite so hard. If this continues, he will definitely be caught up and either fight to the bitter end or be captured alive. He is not afraid of death or being captured, but what about the tasks assigned by his master? At this moment, a black shadow suddenly jumped down from the big tree on the roadside and landed steadily behind him. Yashan was so shocked that he turned back and was about to push the person down, but he heard the person shouting, "Uncle Shan, it's me. Muju, why are you here?" Yashan was surprised and happy, but then became angry. "There are too many enemies behind you, please dismount and hide." Muju refused and said with a smile, "Uncle Shan, just run forward and leave the rest to me." As he spoke, he turned around, back to back with Yashan, and then pulled his belt to tie the two together. To make sure he couldn't fall, Muju took out a small bag from his arms, grabbed a handful of and threw them out. The cavalry behind them were running wildly, with no chance to stop. So, the ball exploded, and the white mist dispersed in front of us, and the dozens of soldiers and horses in front were all hit. The horse was crying, and the rider on the horse was coughing. He subconsciously pulled the reins to escape. With such a delay, the companions behind who were still accelerating were blocked from the way, so they inevitably collided with each other. Muju pulled off the longbow from his waist and shot several more arrows in the darkness, causing several knights to fall off their horses. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yashan had already raced far away. If the cavalry team wanted to catch up again, they would definitely not be able to do it. The chase in the night turned into a one-horse race. After running for half a quarter of an hour, and after making sure that no one was following them, the two of them stopped and found a secluded mountain col to stay. 2 updates today. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1088. Chapter 1088. The worst happened. As soon as Muju untied his belt, he immediately jumped off the horse, lay down on the ground, and breathed a sigh of relief. Yashan his horse and sat next to him, breathing heavily. He patted Muju and said with a smile, "Thanks, guard Mu, it's all thanks to you this time, otherwise I would have been arrested by those people. When the Marquis rescued you, you were still a young man. I didn't expect that after a few years, you would become so successful. No wonder the Marquis always says that you are born to march and fight, but it is a pity that this is not your ambition." Muju crossed his legs, picked up a piece of grass and held it in his mouth. Then he took an oil paper bag from his satchel and stuffed it into Yashan's hand. "Uncle Shan is right, why don't we boys grow up? You need to rest your belly first." "Is this a sesame seed cake brought from home or baked by Aunt May?" Hasima hadn't seen his wife for several months. Hearing this, he quickly opened the oil paper bag, took a big bite, and then narrowed his eyes happily. "Boy, don't think that if you bribe me with a sesame seed cake, I won't pursue the case." Yashan finished the sesame seed cake in several bites, choked and drank a sip of water to smooth it down, and continued to criticize. "How many fog do you still have? Share half with me." "Unfortunately, I am still cautious and don't dare to use one until there is danger. It's better for you to throw them out one by one." Muju was proud that he had his beloved girl to support him privately. He spat out the straw stalks and opened the bag. There were a dozen straws left in total. This thing is not easy to make in the first place, and the princess doesn't have much in stock. Most of it was sent to you for the northern expedition, and the remaining few were given to me. It's just that the princess said that this is a second-generation product with lime powder in it. If the wind direction is not good, it is easy to deceive one's own people, so I did not put any poison powder. Be careful when you use it. Lime can easily cause blindness if it gets into your eyes. If it gets contaminated, remember to scrub it with plain oil. I know Yashan grabbed all the fog and stuffed them into his arms without any politeness, and then got down to business. The Marquis is about to launch a full-scale attack, planning to drive the barbarians out of the border in half a month and completely regain Jiangbei. However, the imperial court has issued an official document to switch from offense to defense, and the delivery of military supplies is also being delayed. The Marquis has decided to abandon the court and fight quickly. In this way, the family will have to find a way to provide military supplies. I wonder how Uncle and Mr. Wen have prepared before? Maybe they can help the Marquis now. Of course, Muju's eyes were so bright that they became clearer in the night. My family has been secretly stocking up on military rations, especially after the last time the military rations were destroyed. My uncle and Mr. Wen couldn't come forward, so it was me and my people who secretly transported the grain to Jiangbei and hid it in a valley. Guarded by veterans. Those 300 veterans were left to me by the Marquis before he went on the expedition. They are very reliable. Yashan was delighted when he heard this and guessed casually, "The valley you are talking about is not the gravel valley that everyone in Broken Gold Beach has longed for, is it? Is it the one where the Guo family's collection of books has been temporarily stored?" "Ha ha ha, you guessed it right, Uncle Shan, that's where it is." Muju jumped up and said, "Let's go, Uncle Shan, let's go back and have a look. Although those people may not be able to leave us any clues, we still have to take a look before we can rest assured. If nothing happens, I'll take you to the valley to discuss how to transport the food." Yashan unscrewed the water bag at his waist, took a few sips of water, and sighed, "That team of people didn't have much murderous intention towards us, otherwise we would have been injured in the rain of arrows just now. However, having such an extra force in Jiangbei is always a trouble, so we have to find a way to get rid of them." Muju nodded. "After the food is shipped, so as not to delay the major events of the northern expedition, I will spend my free time looking for these people. However, it is difficult to deal with these people if I catch them. It would be a pity to kill him, but it would be useless if he didn't kill him. It would be a headache. Let's go, the geese haven't been caught yet, we'll decide whether to steam or boil them later." Yashan untied the horse's reins and climbed onto the horse. Muju then jumped up, and the two of them quietly returned to the place where they had just fought. Sure enough, not to mention the soldiers and horses whose eyes were damaged by lime, there was no trace of the bodies of the men in black who had been chopped down by Yashan earlier. Except for the faint smell of blood that was blown away by the night wind, it was as if nothing had happened here. Muju walked around for a long time, and Yashan was not idle either. Finally, the two of them met. The men in black who first intercepted and killed me were probably the people from Zindu. He was determined to drag the Northern Expeditionary Army with them, and wait until the incident in Zindu was over before letting the Northern Expeditionary Army fight with the barbarians. It's a decisive battle. Yashan looked unhappy and felt angry, not worth it for his master. Hunting for a cousin every day, he wished that the whole world would know how difficult it was for him and his master to support each other and survive since childhood. As it turns out, at the critical moment, for the sake of his own plan, he didn't just throw his cousin's safety aside. Perhaps he has other greed, so that the master worked hard for Tianwu for most of his life, and in the end he didn't even get a good settlement. Muju also sighed, the worst happened. These people are indeed from the palace, and their tricks are all commonly used by secret guards. Judging from the marks of horse hooves, their bodies should have been taken away by that team of people. But I don't know what the purpose of that team of people is. That person has been hesitant before and has not made up his mind. The princess can see it most clearly in the palace. She is worried that such a situation will happen, and she will not be able to eat or sleep well. Now that man has sent his men to intercept Mr. Ho's contact with his family. I'm afraid he has really made up his mind. Yashan snorted coldly, when I go back, I must inform the Marquis in detail so that he can make preparations in advance. That man had already decided to be ungrateful, but the Marquis disobeyed the order and decided to fight in advance. I'm afraid that that man would have more excuses to attack me. The Lord is in trouble. Muju tilted his head and thought about it, then smiled. Uncle Shan, you said that the secret guards wanted to cut off the connection between the Northern Expeditionary Army and the family, and that the troops wanted to destroy the army's supplies. Since they are all enemies of the Northern Expeditionary Army, should we make arrangements to completely blame those dead guards on that team? Yashan's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he asked, do you have any idea? Of course, when the secret guards in the palace handle errands, they usually have backup plans. Once the person who handles the errand has been dead for more than 4 hours, someone will follow up to check. There were a lot of people in that team, and the traces left behind are more obvious. Let's try to find them. It's best to get 2 more sets of clothes and horses. When the following secret guards arrive here, we will lead them to that group of people with the southwest accent. What a great idea, Yashan couldn't help but cheer, and slapped Muju hard. You're too quick-witted, and if you let them go like this, we can get rid of the Jiangbei team that disrupted the situation without us taking action. Muju also smiled, but his eyes were full of coldness. The team of people in Jiangbei who are disrupting the situation are nothing at all. The hypocrite in Zindu who covets his beloved girl is his ultimate goal. The man with the southwestern accent was discovered, and it would be strange if the man in the palace did not doubt the prince-in-law he was interested in. What's more, his consort was so strangely ill before getting married. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1089. Chapter 1089. There are new people and the old ones are forgotten. At the same night, Jiyan had already fallen asleep and had no idea that her jealous boyfriend had already done something big. When I woke up early, the big sun that jumped out of the horizon was still shining brightly, making everyone couldn't help but sigh. Lao Hei and others may have been holding back at Broken Gold Beach for too long, like a pack of wolves longing for freedom, unwilling to stop for a moment. Almost immediately after dinner, Lao Hei arrived at the old house and asked when he would leave for the southwest. Jiyan hesitated for a moment, wondering whether he should ask someone to go to Lu's house to ask. After all, in the past, when the family's motorcade went to the southwest, they would help Luzone carry some things. The sudden lack of help this time can easily make people suspicious. But if it was the same as before, she would feel uncomfortable. After all, being coveted and plotted by others, as well as destroying military rations, had exceeded her bottom line. She waited again and said to Lao Hei, Uncle Lao Hei, I still have a few small things to deal with here. You can wait for 1 day and set off tomorrow morning. Lao Hei immediately responded, Yes, Princess. It just so happens that we should prepare our luggage and supplies. After all, it is a long way to the southwest. Moreover, the caravan we have arranged will not set off together until noon tomorrow. Uncle Hei, you'd better add an extra car this time and store water on the road. Be prepared for the situation where there is no water source within 100 miles, after all, the situation has been dry for so long, and the situation everywhere is probably different from before. Jiyan gave a few more instructions, and then said, this time, bring a few more tin cans that my 6th brother sent back. If you encounter good tea, buy some and bring them back. Also, remember to bring more pills and wound medicine. You can directly go to the pharmacy to get it and just tell me what I told you. Lao Hei was very grateful and quickly stood up to accept the offer. After chatting a few more words, Lao Hei left and went back. Jiyan went back and changed into a more gorgeous dress, and asked Shui Ling to pick some peaches in the greenhouse of the princess's mansion. When going out, Wanner happened to lead Yuan Yuan in from the front, and asked, "Where are you going, sister?" Jiyan said, "Sister-in-law, I'm just going to find you. I want to go into the palace to see the third princess." "Are you planning to go back to the Earl's mansion? Can we go together?" Wanner hesitated for a moment and then replied, "Okay, the food distribution has been finished here in the village. It's no big deal. I really should go back. My brother from my mother's side is seeing the girl, and I always want to ask what's going on." "Then sister-in-law, just go back. It doesn't matter if you stay at your parents' house for one night. The Earl's mansion is right there and you can't escape. If something happens, you can rush back in time." Jiyan is a woman who wishes she could be an old daughter at home for the rest of her life. She is particularly fond of home, so she naturally supports her sister-in-law's return to her parents' home. She immediately called Shui Ling to go to the princess's mansion again, and soon brought back a basket of peaches and a basket of apricots. Peach is pink and moist, with an attractive sweet aroma. Apricots are golden and round, plump, and beautiful. Everyone liked it, and Yuan Yuan couldn't help but secretly wanted to take two. As a result, Jiyan noticed it with sharp eyes and hugged him quickly to persuade him, "Yuan Yuan, peaches and apricots have fluff. Don't touch them without washing them, otherwise they will itch. You should go to grandma's house with your mother and eat with grandma and uncle then, okay?" "Okay." Yuan Yuan blushed shyly, hugged her aunt and kissed her twice more. Jiyan smiled brightly, hugged her nephew and walked out first. "Let's go, Yuan Yuan is back to grandma's house." Wanner quickly followed and shouted, "Sister, put down Yuan Yuan, this kid is too heavy, don't make your arms sore from exhaustion." Chungziu and Wan Kai quickly packed their luggage and put it on the carriage. Mammy Lin stayed to guard the old house, while Grandma He guarded the princess mansion. So, the two sisters can leave with peace of mind and have nothing to worry about. The wheels are rolling and the horses' hooves are clattering. Jiyan's carriage is spacious, and even if there are a few more people in it, it won't feel crowded. There was no one on the road, so Chungziu half opened the window to get some air. Jiyan saw something red hanging on the tree in the distance and asked, "What is that?" Shui Yun glanced at it and replied, "Princess, that is the red ribbon that the nearby villagers tied for the autumn rain." Jiyan frowned, and Wanner sighed while hugging her son, and whispered, "Recently, everyone inside and outside the court has been busy with the matter of crown prince and concubine selection, and almost no one pays attention to the drought. If this continues, if there is no food production this year, there will be no food production after autumn. There are refugees. Now at least we have wild vegetables to keep us warm when the snow falls, there will be nothing to eat." Jiyan nodded, "The granary in the village is too eye-catching. If there are refugees coming here in the future, I'm afraid it will cause trouble for the village. It's better to distribute food to each family for 2 months when the food is distributed again next month, and I will find a way to hide the rest." Wanner felt worried when she heard that, and quickly responded, "Okay, I will make arrangements next month." While talking like this, the carriage entered the city. Jiyan sent his sister-in-law and nephew to the door of Xing's house, then turned the carriage to the palace. The third princess suddenly heard that good news was coming, and quickly asked Kaiun to pick her up at the gate of the palace. Along the way, Kaiun was extremely happy. "Princess, in the past few days since you have been out of the palace, our princess has become very boring, has eaten less, and has lost a lot of weight." Jiyan couldn't help but laugh and responded, "Are you sure she thinks about me? Isn't it because the cook is not as good as Shui Yun?" Kaiun laughed and said in a low voice, all of them, all of them. But our princess really misses the princess very much. The corridor leading to Highland Palace is very long. Fortunately, there are trees on the roadside for shade, otherwise everyone would be sweating profusely before entering. Halfway through, the little fox got the news from somewhere and suddenly jumped out from the roadside. Jian bent down to pick up the little fox. He took a step back when he was hit by it. He couldn't help but scolded, "Sanjo, where have you been stealing food these past few days? Why have you gained so much weight?" Sanjo chirped a few times, hid his head in his master's arms, and pretended to be dead to the end. Jian had no choice but to hold it and keep moving forward. Occasionally, a green shadow flashes past in the grass on the roadside. Jian naturally saw it. When she entered the door, Kaiun didn't pay attention. She took out an egg from the space and threw it over. Green shadows flew up and the eggs were quickly swallowed. "Good news, you heartless person, have you found a new person and forgotten the old one? How many days have you been out of the palace? Why did you just think of me?" The third princess didn't know what popular storybook she had read, and she imitated the attitude of a resentful girl who had been abandoned. At this moment, she pulled her handkerchief and wiped the corners of her eyes, looking like she was accusing a heartless man. Jian rolled her eyes and scolded her with a smile, "Don't tell me that the person who went to my princess mansion to eat so much the day before yesterday is your substitute." The third princess immediately threw away the veil, smiled to please her, and quickly sat down with Jian. "Oh, I'm kidding you. Who asked you to leave me alone in the palace? I'm so idle. I knew you would say that. I'm here to see you." Jian pointed to the basket of peaches. "I'll bring you the freshly ripe peaches right now. In addition, my family's motorcade is going to the southwest to deliver things to my eldest brother, and it will set off tomorrow. I want to send someone to Prince Lu's house to ask if he has anything to take home. If you have anything to say or something to give to Prince Lu, please send someone there together." 2 updates today. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1090. Chapter 1090, Pockmarked is not called pockmarked, it is called a trap. No, I can't tell clearly by sending someone over. The third princess's eyes were shining, and she repeatedly called Kaiun to prepare clothes for her, and then said, "If you have nothing to do, let's go over together and ask." "Okay, let's take a look at Brother Lu on the way." Jian frowned. She entered the palace just to let Kaiun go to the Lu family, not to take the third princess out of the palace. "So," she advised, "it's such a hot day and you're sweating every time you move, so it's better not to go out. Let someone run for you." The third princess refused, hugging Jian's arm and saying coquettishly, "Just accompany me for a walk. You don't know that I saw Brother Lu the day before yesterday. His face was pale and very pitiful. I just happened to send him some more supplements. There are also fresh peaches, and I want to give him half of them." Jian had no choice but to nod. After the third princess went into the house to change clothes, and she was the only one left in the hall, Jian communicated with the little fox in a low voice for a long time, and then gave Shuiling a few words. Shuiling hurriedly left the palace, and Sanjo also ran away without a trace. Soon, the third princess dressed up beautifully and nobly and hurriedly left the palace with Jian on her arm. Perhaps she didn't want to stir up too many troops, so the third princess didn't ask for the princess's carriage, but rode Jian's carriage. Jian tried to persuade her twice, but the third princess refused to change her mind. In fact, every time her princess car drove to the door of Lu's house, it would be surrounded by many people. Everyone in the Lu family, including Lu's own, treated her with special respect and courtesy. This is not what she wants. She wants to come to the house like a normal friend, talk to Brother Lu, and eat snacks and fruits. She talked about her troubles, and Brother Lu tried to persuade her a few words, and then talked about home affairs. So, she has decided to take the carriage with the good news today. There was no good news, but luckily Shuiling appeared on the road in time. "Princess, there's something wrong with the shop, and I'm anxious to see you for advice." Jian immediately responded, What's going on? Shopkeeper Pen isn't in the shop. Shopkeeper Pen went out because of something urgent. He happened to be out of the shop at the moment. Shui Ling looked anxious and urged, Princess, let's get there quickly. Jiyan immediately stood up and told the third princess, go and see Brother Lu and help me ask if he has anything to take back to the southwest. When you come out, come find me among the white clouds. Let's drink some juice and eat some snacks, and then go back to the palace. After saying that, she jumped out of the carriage with Shui Yun. The third princess still wanted to stay, but Shui Ling slapped the bay red horse pulling the cart, and the bay red horse immediately raised its hooves and ran away. Jiyan let out a long sigh of relief. His expression could not be said to be helpless or lucky. Shui Yun was taciturn, but at this moment he couldn't help but whisper, Princess, I'm afraid it won't work if this continues. Should I talk to the princess earlier? Jiyan smiled bitterly, what are you talking about? She said that the person she likes me, and that the person she likes is trying every possible means to force me to get married. Don't you know how to force me to get married? Shui Yun was silent, but Shui Ling jumped up and shouted, Princess, you mean Prince Lu? Shui Yun's eyes quickly covered her mouth with his hands, and Shui Ling's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Such a strange appearance actually made Jiyan laugh, and he managed to put away his bad mood and said, Shui Yun, let go, if he continues to cover him, Shui Ling will die. After saying that, she opened the oil paper umbrella in her hand to block the dazzling sun, and slowly walked towards the shopping street. Shui Ling and Shui Yun followed behind. Shui Ling jumped on Shui Yun like a monkey, wanting to know what happened to Prince Lu. Actually Jiyan didn't say anything to Shui Yun, but Shui Yun was attentive and it wasn't difficult to find some clues. For example, the small gathering before the eldest young master left. For example, Prince Lu no longer comes to Sujintan, or the princess tries her best to avoid Prince Lu. She didn't want to say it, but Shui Lingzi jumped away. What if she went to pry in private and caused trouble for her master? So, she nodded a few words carefully. Shui Ling is not stupid at all, but she was completely annoyed when they were linked together. Fortunately, the eldest young master regards him as a close friend, but he actually covets Our Lady. Why doesn't he think about how many years older he is than Our Lady? He is so shameless. No wonder he always ran to our house before. It turned out to be this idea. No wonder he got sick when he was asked to marry the third princess. It turns out that I'm so angry. Our princess and the third princess are so close, and he has seduced the third princess. Isn't this a trick to our princess? If the third princess finds out, I'm afraid she will go crazy. At that time, we can't blame our princess. Shui Ling was so angry that even though he suppressed his voice, he gritted his teeth even more. He really wanted to eat Prince Lu alive. Shui Yun glanced ahead. Under the oil paper umbrella with ink landscape paintings, the girl moved lightly with lotus steps. There was a hint of sadness in her back, which made her sigh. Anyway, it's good that you know this matter. There are too many involved, so don't make the decision without authorization. Everything depends on the princess, you know. I know, Shui Ling reluctantly responded. Shui Yun was worried and said again, the princess is smart and can definitely come up with a way to get the best of both worlds. Moreover, the princess has been avoiding suspicion. When she has to deal with Prince Lu, she always asks the third princess to come forward. She must have really revealed the truth. Yes, the third princess should also understand the young lady's painstaking efforts, right? In the final analysis, our princess treats Miss Beizu as just a younger sister, and Miss Gu and the others don't keep in touch with each other very often. Only the third princess is considered a close friend of our princess. The two have known each other for a long time, and they have lived and ate together for so long, and they get along like sisters. If possible, I really don't want the princess and the princess to have a falling out. I'm afraid both of them will be sad. Not to mention that Shui Yun and Shui Ling were worried here, but that the princess's carriage arrived in front of Lu's house. Lu Feng happened to be going out and met him head on. Lu Feng hurriedly asked someone to go to the inner courtyard to report the news, and then quickly stepped forward to greet him. By the time Kai-un helped the third princess out of the car, Lu Feng was so shocked that he almost lost half his life. He wanted someone to go to the backyard to change his message, but it was already too late. The third princess frowned when she saw that his face was pale and he did not come forward to greet him. "Steward Lu, are you dizzy from the sun?" The tone of the third princess was not good. Lu Feng suddenly came to his senses and quickly knelt down and kowtowed. The third princess ignored him and led Kai-un directly inside. She was still wondering whether she should persuade brother Lu to change his housekeeper. After all, he looked a little stupid now. As a result, Lu Zone came out of the backyard. He wore a moon-white gown, a jade belt around his waist, and a silver crown on his black hair. He was exceptionally handsome. The third princess was pleasantly surprised and shouted with a smile, "Brother Lu, are you cured?" Lu Zone paused and subconsciously looked behind the third princess Kong Kong. The joy on his face instantly faded. The third princess couldn't wait for him to speak, so she subconsciously followed his gaze and looked behind her. At that moment, she suddenly seemed to understand something. By coincidence, Lu Feng also rushed over at this moment, and said in a cryptic manner, "Your Majesty, Your Highness, the princess has arrived in the princess's carriage, and I will arrange for someone to take care of the horses." End of this chapter.